Hello, everyone. What is good? And welcome to the 10th episode of the One Big Tip podcast. I'm very excited to have you here today. And if you're new here on this podcast, I interview entrepreneurs, influencers, and other all around really amazing achievers and ask them about their one big tip. So far in episode 2, I chatted with Sarah Noked, who talked about how using systems in your business actually makes you more powerful. And in episode 5, I spoke with Yoel Israel from Digital Wadi, who talks about the effect of loving sales and increasing your prices until the market just tells you no. I also had an amazing conversation with Jonathan Sneer, the CEO of ClickClap, who walked us through the essential step of validating your product and getting your customers to help you decide what features stay and what needs to go. In this episode, I'd like to talk to you about some of the tips that I have picked up over the last 10 years or so and that have enabled me to become an entrepreneur, all while going to school, getting my MBA, raising my daughters, and building a lifestyle that allowed me to work from anywhere, check off multiple bucket list destinations, and experiencing a life full of love, purpose, and positive energy. Being an entrepreneur for me has meant that I am now in control of my own destiny. Doing so has also afforded me the opportunity to restructure some basic truths that I had previously believed in, such as, yes, I can travel the world without being a millionaire. I can work from some of the most interesting places on the planet and enjoy myself at the same time. Working for just one salary sucks. That's why I now prefer to work for 40 plus salaries, in the form of retainers. The risk to my livelihood is now much more distributed than before. By choosing to work with amazing people around the world, I have been able to provide employment and purpose to many other entrepreneurs as well. So on that note, I'd like to get into the 10 tips that I learned about being an entrepreneur and how you can apply them to your business today. Let's get started. So tip number 1, don't wait for anyone's permission to get started. First of all, you don't need anyone's permission, license, or certification in order to get started in this game. A lot of people feel that they need some sort of validation to say that they're good before they actually get started. Sorry, but this is such a load of BS. I just can't even. Just remember, you're not doing any rocket surgery here. Of course, there are thousands of courses out there and many gurus that you can look up to. But you need to start with number 1. That's you, yourself, and no one else. I think that another important facet of this is sheer self-confidence. I'm not talking about the arrogant type where you aggressively sell your service to anyone who will listen so that you can sell a set of steak knives. Rather, it's the calm and cool presence that you give off by arching your back, chin up, shoulders back. Even when you're talking on the phone, that's what gets communicated in the cadence of your voice. At the end of the day, it's indescribable the feeling you get when you make your first dollar online. It's also amazing to reap the benefits of performing a good service for other businesses, making them money, all while expanding your own expertise as well. So tip number 2, you can learn all of this on your own. So I remember way back when I was looking for what would be the best degree for me to get. I ended up settling on the MBA because at the time, and I still believe this, nothing beats a classical degree because there are only 2 types of degrees that put you into everything, and that's business and law. I chose the business route. I remember scoffing at the fact that at the time, the University of Phoenix was offering a bachelor's degree in e-commerce of all things. And I was thinking to myself, why on earth would anyone get a degree in that? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for getting an advanced degree in a profession of your choice, especially if that profession requires you to have some minimal standards and hours completed like a doctor or a lawyer. But nowadays, you can find all of that information online and for free. I'm sure that I could take my course syllabus from my MBA courses and replicate my education that way. And it would probably be just as factual and meaningful as when I sat in those classes for every Saturday all day for 2 years straight. There are also a multitude of ways for you to consume all of this content as well. You can watch well-made courses on YouTube and Udemy. You can listen to books and discussions on Audible and your favorite podcast app. And if you're using a browser, you can find blog posts and articles that can explain in fascinating and exacting detail just about everything. Really, who here hasn't just turned to Google to find out how to install something or understand what ROAS is? For those of you who don't know, it's return on ad spend, and how easy it is to calculate it. We're now living in a time where all information is instantly available to everyone. There's no excuse now for not being able to find it. And now on to tip number 3. Take the time to learn about coding and even how to do it yourself. I know that a lot of people out there think of coding as some black art, ninja stuff, or just plain matrix shit. While some of that may be true, that's not an excuse for you not to learn it yourself, and if only to understand what it's all about and to learn what's possible so that you can articulate it going forward. What I mean is this. It might not be reasonable to assume that you do have the time in order to learn this skill, in order to be proficient at it. But actually, that doesn't matter. Think of it this way. When you have a vision or a problem, you need to articulate it, right? You don't just take your car to the mechanic and say, "There's a problem. Can you fix it?" No, you tell him, "The car doesn't accelerate, but I'm fine in first and second gear. Also, there's this pinging sound that happens after 35 miles an hour." Something like that. When this happened to me last week, my mechanic immediately knew that I needed new spark plugs and coils after that. $500 later, it was all fixed. You see, you wouldn't believe how many people have called me up and asked me, "Hey, can you create an app?" And when I ask for details like, "Well, what do you want the app to do?" And they respond, "Well, it's sort of like Instagram, but more social." I mean, come on, you get the point. Knowing how to code opens your mind to what's possible. It also helps you in articulating ideas so that you can convey it properly to a real programmer or programming team that will be able to build out the idea for you. And if you can build it yourself, great. But you'll save yourself a lot of time and money if you draw it out first, build a prototype, and then pass it off to someone who is more qualified to build it better. And now for tip number 4, take the time to learn some design basics. Learning about and implementing design is tough for some people, or they simply ignore it altogether, and that's a huge mistake. Design is something so basic we almost never really give it a second thought. I mean, why should we? It's everywhere. And the whole idea of great design is that you really don't have to think about it. Let's take the New York City subway system for an example. The font used for the signage is Helvetica. It's a classic font that's easily readable even from far away. There's a whole design language going on as well that includes shape, colors, and of course placement. This is what makes getting from point A to point B within the New York area so easy. Once you're going in the right direction, all you need to know is where to get off, and you're there. Good design also adds credence to the product or service that you're going to create. When someone lands on your website, it should be immediately clear what you want them to see or do. And all of that should be happening above the fold or before any scrolling takes place. Another way to look at good design, especially good website design, is to ask yourself, what's the call to action here? What am I supposed to do next? Of course, we've all seen bad examples of this. I mean, I've seen billboards with a QR code on them, or the type is so small you can't read anything. A great landing page should instill confidence in your product, and it all starts with a clean photo or illustration. Then you should have the right font, color scheme, and of course action buttons or links that direct your customer to take the right action on the site. Do this wrong, and you will have a confused customer. And remember, a confused customer does not buy. So the next time you click on a link from an email trying to get you to sign up for something or purchase something or even get you to take an action of some sort, think about that design for a second. Sometimes it's the simplest designs that are the most effective. And now tip number 5, build a great team. Building a great team is probably one of the wisest activities that you can do as a founder. I mean, no man is an island, and in order to build something great, you're gonna need a team. While there is some benefit to sweat equity, I wouldn't bank on it for everything. Therefore, it's important early on to discover and recognize your talents and your shortcomings. You wouldn't believe how much of a time suck doing everything is. You see, when you try to wear too many hats, you become less effective at the things that you're really good at. For example, I can tell you that I'm terrible at graphic design. Honestly, I can't draw a stick figure to save my life. And color matching? Please, I wear the same gray and black every single day. So building a great team doesn't necessarily mean that you need to increase headcount or payroll. Rather, it could just be as simple as finding content writers, programmers, or graphic artists on Fiverr or Upwork. In my experience, I usually start out with smaller projects so that I can accurately measure the quality and speed that the work is being delivered. Afterwards, if things work out, you can negotiate either putting them on a retainer or some other mutually beneficial agreement. There are also a plethora of service based companies that do exactly this type of work for digital marketers. I haven't worked with these personally, but you could take a look at designpickle.com for all your graphic work for social media, infographics, or flyers, or even Content Cucumber for blogs and other writing projects. So just keep in mind, if you have a problem that needs to be solved, most likely there is someone around who will be happy and willing to partner with you on it so that you can go back to doing what makes you awesome. All you need to know is where to look and how to properly define what you need and how to find them. Tip number 6, start small. All right, so I know that we all have world domination plans, and that includes myself while I'm denting the universe back into shape. But trust me, Uber was not built in a day. The truth is, all of your brilliant ideas may not be so brilliant once you put it into the market. Jonathan Sneer from ClickClap in episode 8 talked about this at length. He talked about validation. Let's give a listen again to hear what he had to say.
I had many times that I did mistakes and I had great ideas that I didn't validate, and they happened to be great ideas for me, but not for others. And I think that your customers won't, in most cases, won't invent new stuff for you, but they can definitely guide you to places where you can think of new inventions that can make a difference.
The truth is, all you really need is an MVP, or minimum viable product. This is the absolute smallest version of your product or app so that you can put it out there and get people to pay you for it. Your customers will help you validate the product for you. They'll vote with their checkbooks, and when that happens, then you'll know that you have something special. Another reason why you'll want to start small is that you don't try to cram so much functionality into the initial build of your product. You'll get lost in what's called scope creep. Scope creep happens when you start adding one little feature which may seem small at first, but all of those little small features serve as a distraction to the overall vision of your product. This also happens when you're starting out and you want to please everybody. So let's say that you have finally landed your first client for your product. Problem with this is that once you start, it almost never ends. Even if the client is paying for the development, the distraction alone can take your eye off the ball and could hinder your overall vision for months. So remember, when you're putting together your offering, just remember, done is better than perfect. Create the product, make it awesome, get feedback, rinse and repeat. So for tip number 7, do the things that do not scale. It's the little things that make you memorable. This next piece of advice may seem counterintuitive, but when executed properly, it can pay off in spades. Think about it this way. When you're building your business, you need a way to make your product memorable. But just how are you going to do that in a crowded space? There's only so much optimization you can do to a photo, email copy, or a website landing page. One example of this is in Derek Sivers' book titled Anything You Want. It's a really quick read as he walks through the entrepreneurial journey of building up CD Baby, a company which he founded, in his own home and ended up selling it for $23 million. In the book, he describes the thank you email that is sent after every order. And in a rather tongue-in-cheek way, he describes the journey that the CD took from coming off the shelves to being packed, shipped, and then happily and gingerly arriving at your doorstep. The point of that mail was that it was written in such a silly way that it was totally memorable, even becoming a trademark of ordering CDs from the site. People loved them, people remembered them, and most of all, people shared them. But I have an even better example, one that I received just this week. Rick Carlson, the CEO of SharpSpring, a cool marketing automation platform, sent me this email telling me that very soon I'll receive something amazing at my office. And sure enough, on Monday, I get this FedEx package from them. The package was a photo frame of one of my company's logos set in the center, superimposed on a maze. It even came with a felt tip marker so that you or anyone else in my team could actually do the maze in order to get to the center. But wait, that's not all. The frame also came with a letter that explains why he sent this. First of all, it's not branded to SharpSpring. Rather, it's my logo and focused entirely on my agency. The frame comes with an offer to purchase lunch for my entire team with no strings attached. So that got my attention. A totally free gift with something for my entire team as well. There wasn't even a hard push to first schedule a demo to get any of this. It just showed up. This got me thinking of the economics of all this. So my thought process is SharpSpring has an amazing platform with every bell and whistle a digital marketing agency needs. They could have just spent all this money on Google ads to get their product in front of my face. But honestly, between Entreport, Keep, Active Campaign, and all the other platforms out there, why would I bother? This definitely got my attention. Every time I look up at the wall and I see that cool looking maze with my logo that they sent me, I'll remember them too. I bet their ROI on this campaign is much better than any other channel they may have considered. So I'm sure that putting together this campaign was a Herculean effort on their part, but it definitely cut through all the other noise that I get on the daily. My advice would be to take some time and think about what would be the best way to reach out to your ideal client and get them to remember you. I'm sure that when you're pricing out this equation, you'll find that the return on that ad spend will be higher as you are working to bring in more clients into your business. So tip number 8, expect and learn from failure. I mean, look, we're all failures here, right? But it's from those failures that we mature and learn from our mistakes and then level up for the next go around. I can directly trace where I am today to several failed projects that I have worked on over the years. When I first started college, I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, but then I realized I had absolutely zero aptitude for that. I also tried my luck creating a few retail stores, and I sucked at that big time. I even tried selling sunglasses and belly rings on eBay. Yep, nope, that didn't work either. We've all heard the morbid statistic that most businesses fail within the first few years. But the truth is, if you're not failing forward, you're simply not doing it right. I mean, think about it. Are we all born with the innate ability to ponder and implement new ideas that need no tweaking? Of course not. That's crazy to even think about it like that. So, just like Spider-Man tripping over his newly enhanced body after the spider bit him, you too will need to learn and harness your new superpowers. For me, the journey itself is just as satisfying as knowing that I did something, I gave my best effort, and learned something new along the way. So failure isn't just a learning opportunity for learning what you're not capable of. It's also a learning opportunity for what you are capable of. Failure is simply an opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. And now for tip number 9, ask yourself why. As you're working towards your goal, you should always ask yourself, why am I doing this? This is important because while you're bogged down in the details of your business, it's easy to lose sight as to why you're doing what you're doing and need to find that motivation to keep going. For me, I ask myself this question pretty often, and it usually manifests itself in different ways that I allocate resources in my business and the hours I keep and evaluate whether my actions or activities in this space, even producing this podcast, are in line with my values and my trajectory based on the goals that I've set for myself. In my business, I've set up some base criteria over the types of clients that I want to work with and the types of contractors or service providers as well. I have my own little cheat sheet of criteria that includes things like 1, don't build websites for hobbyists or someone in a business or someone that has a business plan that I don't believe in or I can even wrap my head around. 2, ensure that the contractors that I work with, I don't exaggerate the amount of work that I can give them. This helps me in managing their expectations as well as mine. 3, evaluate that every task that I delegate has a measurable impact on the business in some way, shape, or form. At the end of the day, you should be making a fulfilling impact on the world, and that includes your world, your families, and the people who work with you. And for tip number 10, and this is probably the most important, just start. This is the last piece of advice, which actually should be the first one, but I left it at the end so that hopefully that in this part, it'll sink in the most. Just start. That's it. Just start. Your idea won't just automatically manifest itself into being. You need to lead. You need to make it happen. And that's because whatever's percolating in your head that could possibly change the world, it'll never be unless it gets out of your head and actually becomes something. Think about it this way. People don't build muscles by reading about exercise. They build muscles by doing the exercise. It's the exact same thing here. So that's it. Those are my top 10 tips for entrepreneurs. Obviously, there are many more tips and things to learn out there, and my mission is to uncover them all here for you to learn from. In the meantime, I would love to hear from you and hear what you think. Which one of these tips resonated with you? Which one of these tips can you or have you already applied? Let me know by sending an email directly to jeff@jeffmendelson.com. I would like to hear your feedback and what works for you today. And as always, thank you for your time.